The U.S. Capitol has been transformed as inauguration approaches. Residents call seeing troops on the ground eerie and hope for a peaceful transition. This comes as questions arise over impeaching Trump after he leaves office. As for big tech, Parler popped online briefly with a message, while Twitter seems to have broader plans for censorship. Tune into Deep Dive to find out more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. I hope everyone had a good weekend. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so let's kick off with one of his quotes. He said, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant." Lots happening at the Capitol as inauguration approaches. It's said to be one of the most unusual ones in history. A scare in the nation's capital Monday morning. A small fire that broke out on a side street made it seem like the Capitol was on fire. An emergency broadcast was heard along with an alarm, and staff inside the Capitol were asked to remain inside the building and away from doors and windows. Epoch Times reporter Bowen Xiao is on the ground in D.C. He caught the end of the emergency announcement. He also caught footage of the security fencing around the Capitol. D.C. Fire and EMS said there was a small fire, but it has since been extinguished. And the Secret Service also sent out a notice saying while the Capitol had been temporarily closed for safety reasons, there was no threat to the public. According to reports, the fire likely broke out in a homeless encampment. The fire scare halted an inauguration rehearsal and participants were evacuated. Tensions are high as troops patrol the streets ahead of inauguration. Because of the pandemic lockdown measures, President-elect Joe Biden is set to be sworn in on January 20th with a virtual parade replacing the traditional parade down Pennsylvania Avenue. The parade usually draws hundreds of thousands of Americans. Inaugural balls have also been canceled. Large areas of the National Mall will be closed to the public. The U.S. Secret Service released a map showing which areas the public can access. Several bridges between D.C. and Virginia will also be closed. The city is brought to an almost complete halt. Over a dozen metro stations around the National Mall and U.S. Capitol building have been closed in the days before inauguration. Now, most streets are eerily silent. On top of that, buses, streetcars, and other forms of public transportation, even bicycles, have also been shut down. Most of the stores are closed, and many have been boarded up. This is as security measures around the Capitol are ramped up. This is the first time an inauguration has been declared a national special security event. What's more, it wasn't declared days before, but a full week before the actual event. This comes as authorities anticipate a repeat of the civil unrest and violence observed on January 6th. As many as 25,000 National Guard members from all 50 states, 3 territories, and the District of Columbia will be stationed in the nation's capital. So how is this impacting the people in D.C.? Washington resident Brian Boderick says the security fencing reflected the country's division.
It feels like a military state or just like living in extra lockdown. It's really tragic that we can't find ways to engage in politics more civilly than this. And this is just evidence that we need to do better as a community.
Another Brian from Maryland says he came to see what he called the insurrection fortification. He says he voted Democrat, but what he saw at the Capitol wasn't the kind of transition he expected.
It's not a smooth transition. We shouldn't have to, it shouldn't be like this in the change of power. So yes, I'm disappointed that they have to lock down our Capitol for this.
And a D.C. resident said it was eerie seeing all the National Guards parked on the streets.
And it's really eerie. It's not a feeling that I like, especially for a day like the 20th. And coming from abroad, it's unsettling.
As for the troops, the FBI is currently vetting the guards amid fears of an insider attack. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy told the Associated Press defense officials are keeping an eye out for threats from within their ranks. But so far, he and other leaders have not seen any evidence of such threats. And the vetting of National Guard troops in Washington has not flagged any problems. He added that National Guard members are also receiving training on how to identify potential insider threats. Since the September 11, 2001 attacks, potential insider threats have been a consideration for law enforcement. According to the report, the FBI is currently conducting the vetting of National Guard members who are coming to Washington to support operations for inauguration. The Army is agreeing to Biden's demand for the National Guard members supportive of Trump to get security screening. According to Army Times, the Army is working with Secret Service to determine which of the service members need screening. National Guardsmen were given the authorization to be armed on January 12th in order to support law enforcement in the Capitol and the city, according to a statement by the D.C. National Guard. The authorization came after a request by federal authorities. Troops have been on 24-hour watch in the U.S. Capitol, and off-duty troops have been photographed sleeping in building hallways. The increased number of National Guard members will be there to supplement the already ramped-up efforts from the FBI, U.S. Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Capitol Police, and D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department. This comes amid reports Biden is fearful of loyalty to Trump from the guards. According to reports, Biden had every Secret Service detail on the White House demoted. This comes as he was worried they would stay loyal to Trump. Instead, agents from his vice presidency days will return. And as inauguration approaches, what about the impeachment of President Trump? After the House impeached him for the second time, it's now headed to the Senate for trial. But the impeachment trial might take place after he leaves office. But retired Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz says this shouldn't be happening. He says impeaching President Trump after he's out of office is unconstitutional.
If you can impeach anyone who is not a sitting president, there are no limits to the power of the Congress to try ordinary citizens. It is plainly unconstitutional, and the Senate should not proceed with this unconstitutional act.
He told Fox News on Sunday the purpose of impeachment is to remove a sitting president. He gave the example of former President Richard Nixon, who resigned instead of facing a possible Senate trial in the early 1970s. There was no effort to continue with the impeachment after Nixon left office. One other early precedent is from 1876. Dershowitz mentions a failed effort to remove the Secretary of War. In that instance, the Senate ultimately voted that they did not have jurisdiction to try somebody who had resigned. He says they can't put citizen Trump on trial, and if that were possible, the implications would be horrendous. It could be used against any future presidential candidate that runs against the elected party. Meanwhile, Senator Lindsey Graham is urging Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer not to proceed with impeachment. Graham argues it would be an unconstitutional act of political vengeance, and it would only delay the nation's healing. Trump hasn't decided who will represent him. That's according to a spokesperson. But one person it won't be is Rudy Giuliani. He told ABC News that he's a witness and therefore unable to participate in court or the Senate chamber. After the House impeachment, the next step is the Senate trial. Members decide whether to acquit or convict on the charge or charges. In this case, incitement of insurrection. A 2/3 vote is required to convict. The Senate will soon be 50-50, evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has declined to say when she would transmit articles of impeachment to the Senate. And as to the incoming administration, President-elect Joe Biden plans to push through executive orders and pursue new legislation in his first 10 days in office. Biden's transition team outlined plans for his first 10 days in office, including reversing some of Trump's policies. On day one, he plans to extend the pause on student loan payments and interest, rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, reverse the travel ban from nations posing a terror threat to the United States, launch a 100-day masking challenge that will require wearing masks on federal property and for interstate travel, and extend a nationwide ban on evictions and foreclosures. That's expected to impact 25 million Americans. On day two, he plans to sign orders aimed at slowing the spread of the virus, including expanding testing, increasing public health standards, and addressing school and business reopenings. On day 3, he plans to take action to, quote, deliver economic relief to working families. Also on his agenda, taking action to advance equity and support communities of color and other underserved communities. Biden's incoming chief of staff says the actions will be bold, but the legal theory behind them is well-founded. And he expects they'll add more to the to-do list in the coming days. And as Biden's inauguration approaches, Facebook says it's temporarily banning ads that promote firearm accessories until after inauguration. Facebook said it has already banned ads for weapons, ammunition, and firearms enhancements. The new move expands the ban for accessories such as gun safes, vests, and gun holsters. The ban only affects the United States. The social media platform has been ramping up its content policing leading up to Biden's inauguration. The social media company said that it's attempting to remove content that, quote, could incite further violence during these next few weeks. The targeted moderation by Facebook, Twitter, and others have raised concerns over First Amendment rights and lack of checks and balances on decisions made by big tech. And speaking of big tech alternatives, it looks like Parler's website is back online with a message from its founder and CEO, John Mates. He writes, "Hello world, is this thing on?" He also reminded people why they started Parler in the first place. He writes, "We believe privacy is paramount and free speech essential, especially on social media. Our aim has always been to provide a nonpartisan public square where individuals can enjoy and exercise their rights to both." It suggests he found another hosting service after Amazon kicked Parler off his services about a week ago, saying it didn't properly monitor content. Mates says Parler plans to welcome everyone back soon, and they won't let civil discourse perish. He's also confident the site may return by the end of January. His comments came during an appearance on Fox News Sunday night. Meanwhile, another video from Project Veritas gives insight into Twitter's plans. The video shows Twitter's legal policy and trust and safety lead talking about censorship plans.
In other places around the world where we've seen violence unfold as a result of either misleading information or coded rhetoric. So a lot of our learnings here have come from other markets. So in that sense, we do feel like this is our global approach.
This comes after previous videos show Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey's internal discussions before banning President Trump.
We are focused on one account right now, but this is going to be much bigger than just one account, and it's going to go on for much longer than just this day, this week, the next few weeks. It's going to go on beyond the inauguration.
It was purportedly filmed secretly by an insider whistleblower at Twitter. Dorsey suggests they have to be ready to censor more accounts.
So the focus is certainly on this account and how it ties to real-world violence, but also we need to think much longer term around how these dynamics play out over time. I don't believe this is going away anytime soon.
Project Veritas tweeted that the video is evidence of censorship gone wild. Twitter permanently banned the president 2 days after the Capitol breach, accusing him of inciting violence. Twitter's already deleted a large number of pro-Trump accounts. And earlier last week, Dorsey said the company's decision to remove Trump was divisive and set a dangerous precedent. But he said he believes it was the right decision. And there's been a lot of questions over whether or not big tech should have the power to determine what should or shouldn't be said. Let's look back on the words from Benjamin Franklin. He wrote in the Pennsylvania Gazette, "Freedom of speech is a principal pillar of a free government. When this support is taken away, the constitution of a free society is dissolved." But what do you make of all these updates? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.